I'm about to show you 5 simple storage ideas for your shed. From shelving that's strong enough to stand on, to a modular tote container storage system, a strong workbench, and so much more. All really cheap, all really easy, only 2 power tools needed to build the whole lot. By the end of this video, you'll all be able to build your own shed storage. That is my promise to you. In the summer, I built this pretty huge shed, but as you can see, everything's just been chucked in. And I can guarantee, with Christmas coming up, all last Christmas's toys, well, they're going to end up in your shed. So I think now's the perfect time to build some solutions to cope with all of this clutter. So I think the first thing I'll do is clear all this rubbish out of here and build a tote box storage system, nice and simple, that'll take all of the little stuff, all the bits of clutter that I just seem to keep tripping over. Storage container shelving's not a new solution. Loads of people have done it. So how is mine going to be any different? Well, my idea is simple. You can build it in an afternoon. Anyone can do it. It's going to be modular, so no matter your space, you'll be able to build one of these to fit whether it's a garage or a shed. And we're going to build it out of cheap, simple timber that you can pick up at the likes of B&Q. You can even build this from scrap wood. So it's going to be really cheap for you to build. And we're going to build it from 3 very simple power tools. You don't need fancy stuff, a circular saw, an impact driver. In fact, you don't even need that. You can use a circular saw and a drill. So technically, you'll only need 2 power tools. To make a tote storage system, one thing we definitely need are tote boxes. So I've come to one of the UK's favourite DIY stores. Now it's up to you what size tote boxes you get, but what I would say is consider how heavy they're going to be. Not because the shelving will be plenty strong enough, but because of the weight of them when you're taking them in and out of the shelving. The bigger the box, the heavier it's going to be, and trust me, the more you'll fill it up. So something like these 60 litres, they'll be perfect to handle in and out of the shed. And for everything we're going to build in this shed, we're either going to use the cheapest CLS 63 by 38mm, or we're going to use scrap wood. So I've got my stack of 60 litre bins, but of course, we're not going to build this so that they all sit on top of each other like you see there. So we'll build the 2 side frames first, and for that I'm going to use 63 by 38mm CLS. So I'll just measure the height of the bins, plus I'm going to add 50mm for each bin and the floor. So there's going to be 5 gaps at 50mm, that's 250mm added on the height of my storage containers. Now you want 4 lengths of your timber cut to that exact same height. Once you've marked 4 lengths, you want one of these, a simple speed square, cheap, you can get them on Amazon. I'll pop a link in the description. And a circular saw, one of our 3 or even 2 tools that we're going to use. All you're going to do is use your speed square and your circular saw. Line up your circular saw with that mark, and you can use the flat edge of the speed square to make your cut. This saves you needing an expensive miter saw. You'll get a perfectly straight cut using this method. I'll repeat that for all 4 lengths of timber. In my case, I should have 50mm at the bottom. I should then have a 410 container high, 50mm, 410, 50mm, and so on and so forth. And that way I make sure I've got my height correct. So to know how wide we need to make this, we need to know the width of the container plus each runner. So each side's going to have a runner like this, and that's how they're going to slot into our shelving unit. Don't make these too tight though. I'm going to give myself about 10mm because you don't want the storage tote to be too tight that you can't slot it in the shelving. Once the ladders are built, the runners will sit on the inside to connect the front and back. That'll make a little bit more sense later, but the overall size for my build will be perfect with a width of 500mm. The 500mm bits of timber, they're going to form the bottom and the top of each ladder. So you're going to have 2 of these. I'm just using my speed square again, just to make sure everything's nice and square. And my impact driver, or drill if you don't have an impact driver. And we're just going to fix the 2 bits of timber together. We'll repeat that for the top and the bottom, and remember we're making 2 of these. 1, 2 ladder pieces. Now we need some runners that have 2 purposes. They bring the whole thing together to make it 1, because of course at the moment it's not really anything, and they also create runners for the totes to slide in and out. I've got my side pieces upright. Now all I need to do is measure out each tote, so 410 plus my 50mm, and I just hope I got my measurements right, because if I didn't, I'm going to look rather daft. Good quality screws don't tend to split the end of the wood, but if you do get any problems, use something like a 3mm drill bit to give yourself a pilot hole before you put a screw in. There we go, fits in the corner there absolutely perfectly. But we don't want this thing falling over, so all I'm going to do is check it's plumb in both directions. It's perfect. And then I'm just going to fix it to the stud work of the shed. Now, of course, if you've got concrete or you're doing this in your garage, you've got brick, you'll probably have to use fixings or whatever works for you. As long as we get this thing sturdy so it can't fall over, that's all that really matters. And now all your totes, well, they should slide in nice and easily. Look at that. Simple effective storage to organise your shed. And the great thing is, well, it's modular. You can build as many of these as you want. I went with 2 of these to maximise the space that I've got available. So that's a good start to our shed storage. It's going to be perfect for them littler things, garden tools, kids' toys that you're going to get plenty of this Christmas, I'm sure. But it's not going to be enough because we've still got plenty of space. So what we're going to do now is build something for the bigger stuff. The super strong, super simple, cheap, easy to make shed shelving. So you're going to want to tailor your shelving to your situation. So for me, I'm going to put my first shelf at 100mm. The reason for that is I want to get bigger items underneath, lawn mowers, things like that, maybe even bikes. I want to bring them in and put them underneath that first shelf. So we're going to have 3 shelves, 500mm gap between them, because if you make them too close together, you won't get anything on them. But the trickiest bit of shelves in sheds is brackets. Once I've got my first mark, I'll then just make a mark all the way along the wall so that I can tell exactly where each one needs to go. Now remember, all this stuff we're building today can be transferred to a garage as well, because you can do this whether you've got a stud work building like we've got here, or whether you've got a solid block or brick wall. It'll all work the same. Of course, you'll just be using wall plugs rather than screwing straight into timber. Now I want my shelves to be 500mm long. You can make them whatever length you want. The problem is, the longer you make them, the more leverage they've got to pull away from the wall. You'll also put more on them, they'll be heavier. It's not going to work, it's going to fall off. Let me show you what happens if I just screw this to the stud, because some of you are going to be thinking, why don't I just screw that like that? 2 70mm screws, it's quite a hefty screw. Let's put some weight on that. You can already see it's got nothing. So that is what you don't do. Let's have a look at a super strong, simple bracket that'll take you a couple of minutes to build per bracket. Now I've stepped foot outside, here comes the great British weather. We need to be quick. Good thing is, this shelf build is quick and it's cheap. First thing we need, I've got an offcut of 11mm OSB. It's just 11mm. If you want to go even stronger, you can go 18, but 11's going to be enough. All we're going to do is cut this, which I've already done, into the length of my shelf. So cut the length of your shelf, and then I want mine, if you remember, 500mm. I'm not going to use any complicated tools. I've got a track saw, I've got a table saw. Not going to use any of it because you guys aren't going to have it. We're just going to use what we used before, simple circular saw. But what I am going to use is a level to make a line, because I ain't going to use any fancy tools. Just going to make a line at 500mm all the way along this board. Oh, that rain's getting harder. So that gives me a cut line to follow. There's my 500mm shelf. This is the top of the shelf. Now I just need some super strong brackets. The first thing you're going to need is a 300mm wide piece of OSB. This is a rough, damp old offcut that sat behind the shed from another project. But it ain't going to matter. It's going to be super strong when we use this stuff. You'll want a speed square, a pencil, and your circular saw again. They're the only 3 tools we're going to need. Grab these cheap tools. You can build lots of different things with them, and I'll pop them in the description. The same as this little bench. This little Keta fold-up workbench, amazing. I'll pop it in the description. I've designed this so that your speed square is the perfect size. If you look there, it's 300mm for your shelf bracket. Now, all we're going to do is line our speed square up, make a mark across it. You can see this is going to be one exact shape of your speed square. All I'm then going to do, flip it over, line it up with that previous line, get it nice and square, make another line. Flip it over again, make another line. You get the point, make another line. So why am I doing this? Well, I'm batch cutting. I want 6, in my case, of these shapes. 2 for each shelf bracket. Now, of course, your situation might vary. You're going to need to make enough of these for the length of your shelf. I'm going to cut all them bits of timber out with my circular saw. Remember, I want a 500 shelf, so I'll cut a 500 piece first. Mark at 500, square that off. Now grab one of your little shelf braces, line it up with the end, make a little mark at the tip of it, another little mark, the width of a piece of CLS. Square that across so we know we get a nice square cut. Make that cut. I've got my 500mm length of timber. That goes on top of my short length 70mm screw. Just going to pop one in. All that's doing is holding these two bits together while we strengthen it up. The strength comes from these things. All we're going to do, lay one of those on there, flush with one of the edges for now. I'll just pop some short screws in, couple along each side. Now we've got one side fixed. You can see that's not flush there, so what we're going to do, put a little bit of pressure on there to move that out, keep that nice and flush, and fix that edge as well. In fact, I'll show you how strong this is with just 3 screws. You are going to be amazed at how strong this is going to be. The good thing with this is it's going to be super strong. There's no way you can fold that. In fact, I'll stand on it and prove it to you. You've got a bit there that you can fix to any type of wall. So it's going to sit like that. You can fix this to brick, block, timber, anything you want, because you can get your impact driver in there to fix it to the wall. Now, if I've already saved you a load of money having to buy expensive shed shelving, because now you can build your own, the deal is you've got to subscribe, because coming up very soon, there's much more of this type of stuff that's going to save you loads of money. You don't want to miss it. Hit subscribe, hit like, let us know if you're enjoying it. Now, all of the load that's put on this shelf is going to be transferred through into the stud. These are so strong. Honestly, you'll see in a minute when I stand on it how strong they are. All the load's going to be transferred into these 4x2s. Of course, if you're got in a brick building, block building, you're going to use wall plugs. You're going to fix them to a solid wall. They're going to be super strong as well. If you're in a shed that is much thinner than this, if your studs are much thinner, what you'll probably have to do is put a piece of timber the other side of the wall and screw through so that you're creating a strong plate, something like an 18mm ply on the other side. Use it on a side that's backed onto a fence where you can't see it, something like that. And you can create an effect where you're kind of transferring the load through the building. That's my advice if you're doing this in a really slim, not very strong shed. I've got a couple of 80mm screws that I've already started. Now for our 500mm shelf that we cut earlier. Should fit my space a treat. Look at that. And then we're going to fix this down to the bracket with some short screws. So what do you reckon? Is it going to be strong enough? Guess in the comments now. That is a super strong shelf. If you want to eliminate any possibility of sag between the brackets, then just pop in some supporting pieces of timber and screw them in place. Last one. There we go. That is absolutely spot on. So we've got our tote bin storage area, our super strong shelving, but we've still got this wall all the way over here to do. But before I show you storage idea number 3, I've been rained off. It's really dull in here. The light is absolutely awful. I'll pick up the camera in the morning. Hopefully that rain stops and we'll get on with that back wall. The sun's out, we can see again. Welcome to winter in the UK. Now this bottom shelf I built at this exact height for a reason, because I want this to match my workbench, because that's what we're going to build next. We're going to have a little workbench here that's great for storage. Again, I can put my lawnmower under there, we can do some little fixes on there, that kind of thing. This is our third idea, and we're going to build this out of some scrap timber that I've got left over from my shed roof build. They're all offcuts, they're not pretty, but it doesn't matter, and I think that proves you can build this stuff out of anything. All I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my lengths at 100mm because I want the length of this bench to be 100mm, and then I'll show you how I put it together. I've cut my 2 lengths, they're 100mm long, and I've cut my cross pieces at 410mm because these are 45. So overall, I'll have a 500mm deep workbench. But you can build this whatever size you want based on your space, and of course use timber that's strong enough for the jobs you've got in mind. I know what you're thinking, how do I know that that's square? Well, we're going to use the same 11mm OSB that we used earlier. We're going to cut a piece exactly the size of that top, and we'll use that to square our frame. I start in one corner, I get all the edges flush, and then I use 40mm screws to fix it together. So the studs hold it there for now. It's perfectly level. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to build some legs off this, off the frame, not off the top. Scrap timber again, nothing fancy. Let's get the legs nice and level as well. And then I use 4 80mm screws per leg to fix them. And that is a very strong workbench. Good luck breaking that. The good thing is you can replace the top if you need to. It's just OSB. Now, that only leaves us with that space there because I want to keep that wall open for my table saw and big items along that wall. But we need something for all of that hanging stuff, the long things, garden tools, all that stuff that none of us ever seem to know what to do with and that just gets chucked or stood in a corner. Now, a lot of this is going to depend largely on what garden tools you have. So you'll want to bring them all in and work out exactly where you want them to go. Now, there are some bits that we're going to build on the ceiling in a minute to hang the larger items, but for these simple garden tools, spades, things like that, you can just use 100mm screws. You just want to angle your screw up very slightly because if it's tipped down, guess what? Things are going to fall off the wall. So all I'm going to do, angle them screws up very slightly. How simple is that? Most of these things like spades, they can all be stored in exactly the same way. But what about them annoying long garden tools? Ladders, things like that, things that don't really fit anywhere. Well, don't neglect that, your roof space, because we can actually create hooks and things to hang those long items on. Offcuts of timber, let's get creative. Let's just make some brackets. You can make whatever suits your scenario. All I'm going to use is 2 offcuts. I can even use my little bench that I've made to do it. Creativity is key here. It's about you doing whatever works for the long things that you need to store. There we go, perfect. By building all this, I've still got loads of space for mowers. I've got my mower over here, got loads of room in the middle of the shed, got room under my shelving. The shelving and the tote containers, they take up everything else. When the clutter comes my way this Christmas, I'm gonna be ready. Hopefully you will be too. If you wanna be, build one and hit one of these videos for more great builds. I'll see you guys in the next one.